We're still on the extra credit problem, so now we're going to look at it, what happens with an odd number of rows. So we put that in. Let's just run it first and build. And not too bad, but we have, you know, a slash going one way but not the other, and you can't really put two characters in the same place. So let's say we want to put the X character in there instead. So we need to find when we're on this row, which is the middle row, and we need to find out when we're on the middle character. So let's add some extra logic up here. And first, we only even care about this if this is an odd grid size. Right, so if this is an odd grid size, we want to do some special processing. Okay, so how do we know if it's odd? Well, one standard technique is if the grid size modulo 2, and if you remember, the modulo gives us the remainder after we divide by 2. So if that equals 0, then it's even. So if that does not equal 0, then it's odd. So that will return true in that case. So then it is odd. Grid size will return true. So now we've got a value that tells us when we have to do this special processing. And then we need to know what the middle column is, right? So the middle column is really just the grid size. And it gets a little tricky here because in C++, if you just do a divide by 2, if it's 7, you're going to end up with 3. It's just going to truncate. So we want to force it to do a little bit of floating point. So if we give this a 2.0 by default as a double, so we're going to say divide it by 2, and let's add 0.5 to that. So on 7 we would get 3.5. No, I'm sorry, we would get 4 because it's floating point at this point. This is gonna, grid size is gonna get auto converted to a float, so we'll get 3.5 plus the 0.5 will give us 4. But you gotta remember, right, everything counts from 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3 is the actual column we want, so we can say minus 1. Okay, so that will be our middle column. And you know, if you don't get this right the first time, it doesn't matter. When you run it, you'll see if you did your calculation wrong, and then you can correct it after that. So what are we going to do? Okay, so here's our leading character. So we don't want our regular leading character when these conditions are true. So our leading character is here. So if column equals row, let's add some brackets here and reformat. Okay, so if our column equals our row, so if it is an odd grid size, we're only going to do it under that condition, right? And the column is the middle column. I didn't use is there. So if the column equals the middle column, in that case, and I don't have a constant here, but we'll just print it out. We're going to put out an X in that case. Okay, and then otherwise we want our normal leading character. All right, just like that. So let's see how that looks. Okay, good. So now we've got what we want. Now we'll talk a little bit about refactoring, and our code's starting to get a little bit messy. It's it's getting to be a little bit long. Not terrible, but it's a good time to show you some techniques for just ways you can go through and clean up your code a little bit when things start to get out of hand and you're trying to read somebody else's code, and if it's really long, it just gets tedious and it gets hard to find the parts you're interested in. So we can see, we've got a 4 and a 4, and then once we're inside this loop, we're going to do something here. And what is that something? Well, we're always seeing out something. We're always sending a character. So let's create a another function here called sendChar. So we're going to send a character like this. Now, the fact is, when we're doing all this, looks like we're going to need to know the column and the row, right? So let's pass both of those down into this function. So this is the row int column. And so now, remember we're in a separate file, and I put this down below so it wouldn't know about it. So let's go over to our .h and let's add it to our .h, and Control Tab here to get toggle back and forth between these two. And you can see by default it always includes, when you use the technique I did of creating a class, it always includes its own .h, so it already has access to this. Okay, so we're gonna send a car out, and that's just all of this stuff. So let's just grab all of this to right there, both inside both loops, and let's paste that there. And you see we get all these warnings because we put all these constants inside the function extra credit, which means their scope is limited to this function, and this function doesn't know anything about it. So we want to make these available to the other function. We're just going to move them up above. And this would be okay. There's one problem here. You can come down, let me just reformat here. Let me take a quick look here. Okay, missed these two guys. And I actually don't, these are only used inside the loop. So this is another good programming technique, is to kind of keep your data as close to where you used as possible. So let's put this down here inside send car. Okay, so now our warnings are gone. We compile and everything's okay. There's one thing I don't like, and that it's not obvious, but these constants can actually be accessed from outside of this file. They're really in the global namespace, and that's not a great idea. So I'm going to use the little trick here for the, this is the, I think I've talked about this for toggle block selection mode. So this is where one use of the static keyword is helpful. It's different than the other uses of static. Static in this case means these constants are specific to this file. They have file scope, so only functions inside extra credit can see these names, and we don't have to worry about name collisions or anything else outside of our file. Okay, so we're refactoring again. We're not trying to change behavior anymore because we've already done our X, so we just want to make sure that we haven't, that everything still works the same. And it doesn't, and that's because I forgot to actually call it here. So you want to put send car, and you want to pass in the right order the row and the column, just like that. And I should be able to rebuild that, and then run that, and now we're good. And really, we should go ahead and let's just check that we haven't broken anything in the even case either. And that still looks good. Okay, and I think we could go one step further here. We've got quite a bit of code that really what it does is it sends out the regular leading character, or it sends out an X. And that's all of this stuff in here and these definitions. So again, let's take all this and let's move this down here. Okay, we're going to need to know what column we're on. So let's take that, and then let's take all of this code and move it down there as well. So grab that. Okay, and then this time I'm going to remember to actually put the call in here. Send leading character X, send it the column. Let's Control Tab again over, well, let's grab the name first, and then Control Tab and put that in there. Control Tab back. Let's build that. Okay, and let's go back to our harder case, which is the odd number. You can see why CN might be valuable here. Instead of having to rebuild, we would just type in a different number. Okay, so all that looks pretty good. So just kind of an overview here. So now when you're reviewing somebody's code, you can see how seeing this is a little easier to swallow in one glance. And then if you hover, you can kind of get a look at the things you're calling. It only works one level deep. So if you want to look at the next one, you do that. And then Eclipse has all kind of tricks for getting to code. There's like different shortcuts. I think I have F12 set up, or you can right click and you can say open declaration, and it jumps down. So if these were in different files and things, they're real easy to get to. So anyway, that's just one way to kind of refactor and clean things up. And see, even send car looks a little easier. You can say, oh, when the column equals the row, we're doing this. Otherwise, we're doing these other things. All right.